Hi everyone, welcome back to Real Preacher Patty. I'm your host Patty. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, promoting Trans Visibility Day on March 31st, 2024 on Easter. He has been appointed by the Biden administration to be the Secretary of Education, in charge of the overall education in the United States of America for children. Children today are being brainwashed, manipulated, and indoctrinated with agenda being pushed by the federal government, with this administration, the White House, into the Department of Education, to all public schools. It has a huge impact not only on education, but with its actual purpose of manipulating and brainwashing children into making the LGBTQ plus agenda seem normal and teaching them from a young age that it is okay for them to change their gender, that it's okay for a boy to be a girl to be a boy, that it's okay for them to use bathrooms not identified to their gender, that it's okay for them to feel like a boy or feel like a girl, despite the fact that biology says there's a man and a woman, an X chromosome and a Y chromosome, nothing else in between. The reason why this is so serious is because children today are being indoctrinated and brainwashed with this agenda instead of actually learning in school. Kids today have the lowest test scores in history. They do not know how to read, they do not know how to write, use creative thinking, be intelligent, and actually learn in school what they are supposed to. Instead, they are learning the LGBTQ plus agenda. American flags are being replaced with pride flags. Teachers funded by the Teachers Union and federal government are pushing this agenda in their classroom. Over-sexualized and sexual textbooks and content are being shown through text, images, coloring, videos. This is what kids see during the day at school. So in today's video, I'm briefly going to be talking about what he said, but truly exposing why this is so significant. Why our children today are being brainwashed and indoctrinated to push an agenda through education, through the school system, to make them dumber, uneducated, confused with their genders, and promote degeneracy and mental illness that they want. This is the most important time for parents to step up for their children. Public schools are being flooded with the wokeness and the left wing ruling everything, especially education. So let's talk about what the Education Secretary said during his speech for Trans Visibility Day. I quote, "To the many transgender students across the country listening on this Trans Day of the Visibility, we in the Biden-Harris administration want you to know that we see you, we support you, and we celebrate you." First, let's talk about the first part of the sentence. Transgender students. Majority of students are not transgender, and the ones that are due to mental illness of boys wanting to be girls and girls wanting to be boys, because it is a degeneracy that is promoted, that is funded with the social left-wing programs that is being pushed through education into public schooling that makes kids confused. This was never a problem before. You were able to send your kids to school and they would learn math, reading, writing, science, biology, which is clearly needed today since people are confused on basic biology. And you knew that your child was getting the education of actually learning what is important. Today, when you send your kids to school, especially public school that is funded by the federal government, children are being indoctrinated and brainwashed with sexualized material and learning nothing about true education, but about diversity, equity, inclusion, LGBTQ, transgender, pronouns, and many more. School is not the place for that. School is the place to learn. But of course, they do not want you to learn. They do not want to have an intelligent, educated, and smart society because their plan would fail. If you have a degenerate, brainwashed, manipulated, lazy, and compliant society, you can do whatever you want with no pushback. Then he said the Biden-Harris administration. The Biden-Harris administration, this government, the White House, and all departments funded by the federal government are being weaponized to push this agenda. It's kind of funny when you actually read this, you recognize that this is from the Biden-Harris administration that is pushed. When you compare it to the administration prior, this was not the case. So he's literally exposing that this is the administration that he is with that is supporting this action of pushing Transgender Visibility Day on little children, on children who do not even know what that means because they're being manipulated and indoctrinated by the school system. Miguel Cardona, the education secretary, was appointed by this administration administration to his function. Furthermore, President Joe Biden on Easter is promoting Trans Visibility Day, and then Education Secretary appointed by his administration is furthermore promoting Transgender Visibility Day onto students, onto little children. And last part of his statement, he said, "We see you, we support you, we celebrate you," which is the biggest gaslighting of pushing victim mentality. This is a huge problem amongst the woke left Democrats, is the fact that they always push victim mentality. They spread propaganda on diversity, equity, inclusion, Black Lives Matter, transgender rights, LGBTQ, and make people have the victim mentality that somehow they are the victims in the case and everyone is attacking them, which is not the case at all. This is done on purpose to further manipulate them with crazy emotions and feelings that creates the mental illness that they have created, that serves as the foundation of this mental illness. So let's talk about why this is so significant for education. First of all, this has no place in education. Education and schools are to educate and teach children math, reading, writing, science, biology, being outside, exploring nature, learning new things, creating skills. This is what education is for. We have turned the foundation of education into indoctrination, brainwashing, manipulation, and pushing the woke left agenda, starting with the federal government of this administration, through the White House, through many departments, including the Department of Education, that is responsible for our curriculum and teachings within the classrooms. That further expands the types of teachers they are hiring that are also promoting and pushing this agenda. The teachers union, the teachers personally, do not educate and teach children how they should be taught. When you look at public schools, majority of teachers in public schools are not good teachers. They are funded by the federal government, and instead of hiring people that are good teachers, that are veterans, who are actually able to educate children, we're hiring educators that are woke left, brainwashed Democrats that further push the agenda instead of actually educating children. Second of all, the test scores are lower than ever. Kids today don't know how to read. They do not know how to write cursive. They do not know science. They do not know biology clearly, with boys being girls, girls being boys, transgender, LGBTQ+, everything is okay. Whatever you feel like is who you are, not your actual biology and logic. They are not actually learning material that is going to educate them and make them smarter. Now, on the contrary, the textbooks that are being added to schools are sexualized content, LGBTQ+ of mommy and mommy, daddy and daddy, different colored babies, sexual content of performing acts. Have you ever heard of the school board meetings of parents reading their children textbooks that are being put into the schools, into the libraries, of how vividly the sexual acts are being expressed? And the school board shuts them down for reading what they gave to the children, to little kids in the first place. Now in classrooms, we have pride flags instead of American flags. Children are being taken on field trips to drag queen shows. Guest speakers of LGBTQ+ are coming to speak to children. Just like I always ask the questions of where are the feminists when men are competing in women's sports and winning, when President Joe Biden gets rid of Title IX and allows people based on how they feel and what they want to express themselves to identify as instead of their actual gender. Where are the parents? Where are the parents that support this, that are sending their children to public schools, that show over-sexualized content in textbooks, that teach them the LGBTQ agenda, that take down the American flags and replace it with the pride flags? The teachers who are not teaching their children reading, writing, math, science, biology, but teaching them genders. And now the Transgender Visibility Day. This is brainwashing, manipulation, indoctrination of poor little children. Little kids do not know better. The whole foundation for the life is what they get from their parents, with how they're raised, from the home they grow up in, and their environment. So when you're pushing the LGBTQ agenda from little children from a small young age, they of course do not know any better. This is not normal. This is mental illness. This is promoting degeneracy all the way from the federal government into public school classrooms. Now, when you stop and pause for a second, think about when this really started. As soon as the Biden-Harris administration took over, it's when everything in this country truly went downhill. Never before in schools you would see pornographic, over-sexualized content, textbooks for children. You would never see pride flags hanging around the school. with American flags being taken down. You would never see drag queen shows of men dressing up as women acting in front of children. You would never see kids attending parades with rainbow colors and transgender men and women and gays and lesbians and queer and how many 100 over genders they identify them as, despite the fact there's only 2. Just like the subject of feminism is very important because it's indoctrinating and brainwashing, manipulating young girls and young women into becoming manly, not being feminine, not wanting to have children and a family to destroy the family unit, but to push them to work so they become boss babes and actually pay more taxes, spend more money, and have no feelings and emotions. The same is happening now with children, where in education and schools, they're being taught the LGBTQ plus agenda instead of actually learning, studying, becoming intelligent to build the best future they can for themselves. They don't want that. They want the society to be uneducated, stupid, unintelligent, compliant, lazy. That way they're able to control it. And one of the best ways to do that is through education. They are the ones that control the education and levels of how highly educated and uneducated people are. So the more degeneracy, mental illness, and brainwashing they put into schools of little children starting at a young age, the more they can control them. And then they become advocates for the federal government promoting degeneracy. This is a whole circle that is a plan to destroy the society starting from little kids. The reason why this makes me so upset is because its kids are so innocent and they are so good, and if given the right conditions and environment, home, values, morals, and education, they can truly flourish and become the best members of society and create the best lives for themselves. Kids, of course, don't know any better because as they grow up, they get educated by their parents, by their grandparents, by the school, by the society, which is at a huge decline. The fact they have a Secretary of Education who makes a video promoting Transgender Visibility Day in education onto little kids and children is disgraceful. I cannot imagine that somebody has a title of being the Secretary of Education, which is a high position appointed by the Biden-Harris administration, to make decisions of brainwashing, manipulating, indoctrinating little children with the LGBTQ plus agenda, of telling little girls it's okay to be little boys, of telling little boys that it's okay to be little girls, that whatever you feel like is your gender, of hanging around pride flags, taking them to parades, having drag queen shows, and now putting textbooks of over-sexualized content that are so inappropriate that adults even don't read books like that. And you're putting that into education and children. Parents and people all around need to really wake up and see what is happening. They are indoctrinating, manipulating, and brainwashing little children by controlling what they see, read, watch, listen to, and the environment they are in so many hours in a day. People send their kids to school for multiple hours a day, 5 days a week. From the moment they're little kids, they're 18 years old. They are almost 2 decades in the system that is created not to actually educate them, but to brainwash them and manipulate them. Especially since the Biden-Harris administration took over, we see a decline in test scores, in intelligence, in knowledge, in reading, in writing. The teachers union that shut down the schools with the federal government, that set kids back a couple years. This is a huge issue that people really need to understand and parents need to stand up against. If possible, I would urge everyone to take their children out of public school. Whatever sacrifices you need to make sure you do that, because your children are going to be ruined by public school. Before in public school, if you really wanted to study and educate yourself, you could still do it within the system that we had. But ever since the Biden-Harris administration took over, everything is at a decline. Our whole society, with all of their policies, their elected officials, the agenda they are pushing is now being pushed onto little children. I cannot believe that someone as a Secretary of Education would promote Transgender Visibility Day to the percentage of the students that believe that is so small. But you're influencing, indoctrinating, and pushing children into thinking that this is normal when it's not. Little kids don't know any better. They don't understand that there's an agenda being pushed against them. But parents need to take charge of their children's education and stop this nonsense. We need to bring education back into education. We need to teach kids how to write, read, understand science, biology, chemistry, physics, be interactive with the nature outside, get creative, coloring and building things, not pushing the LGBTQ agenda, not pushing sexualized content books, not pushing drag queen shows, not pushing rainbow flags and rainbow colors. We need to teach children education. This is what education is meant for. But somehow, by this this administration and this agenda being pushed, we have turned education into brainwashing of children for being advocates for the LGBTQ plus agenda and promoting this mental illness. My hope with this video is that people understand how our education system has been destroyed by the Biden-Harris administration, who promotes mental illness, degeneracy, indoctrination, manipulation, brainwashing, all done through education of pushing the woke left LGBTQ agenda onto poor little kids instead of actually teaching them what is important in education to make them smart. I hope everyone stands up for the future generations and children that are being impacted by this, for parents to go to school board meetings, for people to vote for elected officials that stand for true education, which is only Republicans. When you compare Democrats to Republicans, Democrats do not care about actual education. They only want to push the LGBTQ plus agenda into schools. This has been proven over and over again with the federal government, with this administration, with the Department of Education, with the teachers union, with school boards, with teachers. And now it's the parents' jobs and the jobs of the society to push back against it, to actually educate children and not brainwash them with LGBTQ plus of the woke left agenda to create a degenerate and mentally ill society. As always, thank you so much for watching. May God bless you and may God bless America. I will see you in my next episode.